first standard on protective clothing came out in 1975. It was the specification for the Prince George County Fire Department's turnout gear. We took their spec, I can't say we because I wasn't there then, but the folks took their spec from PG County. There was a guy named Harvey Utack, and his specification became the first standard for NFPA 1975. It wasn't a performance test, it was or standard, it was an actually specification. And we evolved. We evolved since 1975. So the last 34 years, we actually addressed performance issues of what we'll touch on. And then in 1979, OSHA, or really 78, OSHA began working on a specific standard for firefighters. They took the Harvey Utack standard and they tried to address boots and gloves and helmets to some extent. But in 1980, OSHA came out with what is called the Fire Brigade Standard. I remember this quite well because it was my first job when I reported to the IAFF back in the end of 1978. And they said, you know, OSHA's going to pass this new standard, you have to work on it. Of course, I had a desk and there was an old fire helmet and there was no files, there was nothing, it was just myself. And we began working on that collectively with our members in the field, a safety and health committee, which we had at the time, to get OSHA to put out a new standard. And they did. Was the standard that good? No. But was it important? It certainly was. It was the first time in the history of PPE or any firefighter business that the federal government told fire departments what to do. It was the first standard out there that regulated what fire departments did. And so the importance of that may fall through the historical wayside, but indeed it was a major project for a lousy standard. But at that time it was very good. Unfortunately, over the past 30 years, OSHA hasn't done very much for firefighters, and that standard is still in the books, written exactly how it was, allowing cotton coats, for example, allowing three-quarter boots, for example. But again, the historical issue there is that it forced people to do things. Project Fires was the first major project that the IAFF was involved in with the chiefs in a number of cities throughout the country. Fire stands, if you don't remember it, Fire Integrated Response Equipment System. It was funded by NASA originally in 1969 when the 3 astronauts were killed on the Cape. Our union, the president then was a guy named Howard McLennan, wrote a letter to NASA and they said, when you're working on your new project to put protective clothing on astronauts, which they began doing, we'd like to be involved, and they were. And Project Fires came out of that initial letter. I save everything, by the way, in my office. I'm the junk collector, and I do have the original letter that McLennan sent in the response back from NASA that we keep. My secretary always complains that I never throw anything away, but I'm glad I don't because I have this type of history. So we began this project to look at, and we brought lots of new products in the fire service. PBI, no one heard of that before. It was a product that was being produced in Staple in Germany. They began manufacturing it here. We used that in the Project Fires gear. Gore-Tex, whoever heard of Gore-Tex before? Bob Gore came to the meeting, and Gore is an interesting fact, because I know there's Gore folks here this week. Bob Gore was very concerned about using his product, Gore-Tex, in a protective environment for firefighters, because their industry was the sports industry. They didn't want to have a product out there that may have leaked or may have had a problem in a fire environment that would obstruct, I guess, their hunting, their skiing, and their other product. But we worked with them, and back in the early days, in the early 80s, then Gore-Tex became a product, and it also, I'm not here up there waving any manufacturer's flag, but it also brought into a new product. So, but then we moved into performance issues, testing issues, and some significant material issues, not only with Project Fires, but what Project Fires did in the NFPA process. So we moved from Harvey Utack's specification for PG County and the world after that into actually performance issues that we worked on for a number of years with a number of hurdles.